Hello authors, it is lovely to see you all again. Are you prepared to be a part of the story this time? Every waking moment in our lives, we stand as a witness to existence. Our perceptions validate our substance of being, yet still we seek the perception of others to validate ourselves. This in itself is not a bad thing. We demand repeated tests in science that get peer-reviewed to validate them. To have outside confirmations support the validity of true things. Yet how we are seen by others is often nothing like what we truly are. In today's tale, the abuses that do not bruise are being done to be witnessed. We all put on a costume to present to the world. We want to know that we are seen in good favor. This gives us a sense of incorporated belonging, a sense of being known in a world where we are taught our value is based on what we own or have proof of achieving. Our wardrobes, partners, cars, homes, jobs, degrees, etc. give a superficial identifier to determine if we deserve to be respected. Being an abusive person doesn't mean you don't want to be known. It means you don't want to be held accountable for being who you are, but you still want to be seen for who you are. Abusers desire to be seen as powerful, to be respected through their induced fear and domination, to validate being cruel to gain power over others. Our story today begins months after Steve moved in. This was when I learned this lesson about how those who abuse reassure themselves that they are justified in being violators by having people witness the abuses they caused. As our life with Steve moved forward, we got to see how he behaved in the presence of others. When he was with customers, he was stoic, authoritative, being accommodating once the price was set and met. With friends, he would publicly shame them or put them down every so often, between the fun guy acts, always gaining ego boosts from causing humiliation. If you were a stranger, you got the nicest version of Steve. He never gave away the abuser he really was. They got to see the nice guy who was accomplished, charismatic, and confident. He did not want to raise any red flags that may get him noticed for his actions in his private relationships. Steve didn't want to get caught. This shows full awareness of him making an active choice to be abusive. Steve wanted to hurt people, even family. Steve had a family before he and Mom ever met. He had 2 kids, a boy and a girl, me and my sister's ages. The holiday breaks were coming, and it was decided that Steve's kids would come to stay a week with us. Once Steve had arrived, I was grounded to my room most of the time with additional busy work as punishment. My sister had become withdrawn due to Steve constantly teasing her about her appearance, while my brother was Steve's pet minion who got little to no mistreatment, as long as he stood by Steve's side watching. My brother was Steve's daily validation of being known as the creep he was. Mum was overworked, stressed, and easily manipulated by Steve's good guy act. He did not start making Mum's insecurities weapons until he had fully love-bombed her into complete devotion to him. In this short time, my family became mostly silent in our own home at all times. When we heard Steve had kids and they would be visiting with us, we got very excited. We figured he would not treat his children the way he treated us. We thought we might get to have a great Christmas, because Thanksgiving had been nothing but shame, disappointment, and hate. When his kids got there, all was good for the first couple of days. There were a couple times I saw Steve hold back from reacting to his kids, like he would have reacted to us doing the same thing. My sister and I figured we just might get that good holiday. But when the 3rd day came around, all hope was ripped away from us in the middle of the night. The oldest was the girl and she was sleeping on my sister's top bunk, but his youngest was using the pull-out couch in the living room. Around 4 a.m. I woke up to him coming into my room. He was very silent, but I could tell by how he was acting that he needed help. We were the same age, and my room was the closest to the living room, besides Mom and Steve's room. The moon was out, so we could see clearly with the bright light it shined through my window. He was crying. I whispered to him, "What's wrong?" He dragged his arm across his snotty nose, took a couple gasps, and said I wet the bed. I was relieved. I thought maybe Steve had done something to him. "Don't worry about it. I know where everything is to make the bed. You go and get changed," I told him in a soft whisper. Finding ways to avoid Steve from discovering things that would get us punished had become a hobby of mine by then. We went to the living room and I began to take off the old blankets as he hid behind the floor-length curtains to change out of his soiled pajamas. I was just about to get the dirty blankets down the laundry chute when Steve came forcefully into the room. He saw the wad of blankets I was holding and scanned the room for his son, calling him out from hiding. He came out from behind the curtain in his clean pajamas. He had taken 2 steps when Steve rushed over to him, grabbing him by the back of the neck and forcing him to his knees. I was crying, his son was crying, and the anger and annoyance of having to deal with us kids so early in the morning twisted Steve's face into pure cruelty. "Get on the floor next to him," Steve demanded of me in a growl. I did as I was told, dropping the blankets where I was standing. "Don't move a muscle," Steve said as he went down the hallway towards my brother and sister's rooms, returning quickly with all the other kids in tow. "All of you, stand over there," Steve's menacing, harsh voice commanded us in the moonlit room. He motioned to the head of the bed for us to stand in a line. My brother began to cry. He normally did not get the harsh side of Steve pointed at him, and he was scared. I quietly told him to shush, making eye contact out of the corner of my eyes to express the urgency for him to try to control his tears. I knew with how Steve was acting, he did not care who he lashed out at, and the more pain he could cause, the better, from my lived experience over the past few months. Steve grabbed my face, squeezing my cheeks so they hurt, leaning into my ear to tell me to shut up. I did. Our sisters looked furious and frightened all at the same time, but neither made a sound or moved from their position. I don't know what kinds of abuse outside of the public abuse Steve gave them they received, but neither one of them ever challenged him like me. I never did entirely succumb to my abuse. I was always finding a way to fight back. It was just futile. Once Steve had us all standing in a straight line at attention, he began to give us a speech about responsibility. In his words, his son was named useless for pissing the bed, then having the lowest of the low clean it up, referring to me. He berated him, telling him how weak he was. He told his son what a disappointment and failure he was too, causing his son to sob with so much sorrow and pain I almost jumped the line to attack Steve. Once, Steve had drawn that response out of his son. He moved to the next stage of his performance. He rushed his boy, grabbing him by the back of the neck again, forcing his little body to move to the edge of the soiled mattress. I watched his son try to remain standing as Steve used his forceful grasp to the back of his neck to push him down to the floor on his knees. Steve kept a firm grasp on his son's neck and repositioned himself so every one of us kids in line had a clear view of what he was about to do. As soon as he had the line of sight clear, that psychotic grin came on his lips as he forced his child's face into the piss on the bed. He began to degrade his person to the most depraved degrees, as his son desperately flailed to lift his face out of the mattress to breathe. We kids stood with tears, tremoring with terror at what we witnessed. For me and my siblings, it was a complete shock. We did not think Steve would treat his kids like he treated us, and to see him display such visceral hatred towards his own son was so disturbing. His daughter looked almost numb, and I knew without a word that she knew this side of her dad very well. She was already trained. There was an expectation from Steve of his witnesses. They had to be silent. They could not look away. Crying was fine, as long as you didn't close your eyes or sob too loud. Standing numbly was his preferred form of attendance. We had only just gotten the systems figured out, but his daughter knew. That was when I realized his son knew too. That was why he came to me for help. He was trying to avoid this. When Steve was done with his performance, he dismissed us kids back to our rooms and began to drill Sergeant his son to clean the mess up. The next day, his son wouldn't look anyone in the eyes. I completely understood, because Steve had done something similar to me a few times already. When Steve mentioned needing things from the store, I quickly spoke up that I would go. This surprised Steve. He gladly handed me the cash and the list with an amused smile. As I looked at the list, I asked if his son could go with me to help carry the bags. Again, Steve looked pleased. He was getting what he wanted without us fighting it. All right. He can go, but do not take too long or you will both regret it, was all Steve said as we headed out the door. When we got a block away, I finally got the boy to look me in the eyes. I told him not to be embarrassed about me seeing what happened. I told him of the many tortures his dad had done to me since. Moving in, with each new thing, he began to share his similar run-ins with his dad. Each word brought his son out of his suffering from the event in the moonlight. The tension in his body eased, and by the time we got to the store, he was laughing and smiling. This remained until that last block back to the house. We agreed that we would be battle buddies in regards to everything Steve. Part of this agreement was to give him a show of compliance to his torments, while behind the scenes, we would be allies in our punishments. I learned that being witnessed was a performance to that day, and used the knowledge to avoid what punishments I could. It also came in quite handy in the many attempts to get justice for my abuse. But that is a little bit later in this chapter of my life. The fear Steve caused us all was very real. The threat was very real, and having all of us share in witnessing his crimes gave Steve something to hold over us for compliance. He knew he was wrong to do these things, or else he would not have made sure the real Steve wasn't known to the public. He validated himself and his behaviors by making others a part of it, sharing the shame of his actions in his mind. I was much older when I realized all of this about my abuser. It haunted my memory that his need to be accepted as his tyrant self was so desperate. I fully understood his thrill from dominating others as he did. That high of addiction was easy to pinpoint in my youth, because it was so similar to that one kid on the playground who would take the weaker kids' toys. Often bodies grow, but emotional maturity remains adolescent. Steve was a prime example of this. The toys were different, but he was just a bully. Thank you, authors, for standing witness to these abuses with me today. I don't wish them to harm you at all. I aim to educate about, encourage recovery from, and expose the abuses that do not bruise through our awareness. Have any of you ever been forced to witness the abuse of others? Maybe it was at work, from the boss berating a coworker, or at school, from the teachers singling out a student to embarrass them. When you sit down and think back on it, you will discover many times you were the witness. Many of these events are not as life-threatening as the experiences in my life story, and I would love to hear about the times you were able to stand up to the bullies. We have the power to choose how we are perceived. It is more than the superficial that defines who we are. It is our actions towards others that tell people who we are in the world. I am an author. I live my life story, then reflect as I edit red words out for purple words. I stand as a witness to the abuses that do not bruise, in order to prevent them from continuing so freely in the world today. Every person is a witness in their own life, and it is up to us, authors, to tell the tales of those lives lived. Cheers to seeing the red words in our stories, authors. Until next we meet.